What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of British Guy Reacts, the place where we give honest, not overreactions. And today we're back reacting to the channel Lost in the Pond. I've left the name of the channel on the screen. He has a lot more subscribers than me. It's 400,000 subscribers, but go and check this guy out if you've not before. We watched one of his videos previously and it was really good, really funny. Funny English guy who now lives in America. And we're checking out another one today, which is 5 ways British and American meal etiquette is very different. So yeah, go check out this guy's videos. The link will be in the description to his channel. And we're going to jump straight into it and see which ways the British and American meal etiquette is different. If you enjoy my channel, subscribe as well. But yeah, let's get into it. Lost in the Pond. Good name.
Hello,
as well,
I'm
that.
Lawrence, and I'm
Hi,
on
Lawrence.
quest to uncover all of the memos that
Good to
Britain
see you
and
again.
America lost in the pond. And one of those memos pertains to how we eat, dining etiquette. It's so important, especially when you're meeting your American family for the first time. I'm not talking from experience, maybe just a bit. Cultural differences around the dinner table don't just come down to the words we use, like chips versus fries, or the dishes that we serve. So, you know, America's pecan pie versus Britain's spotted dick. And that is an actual dessert, okay? Look it up.
It is an actual dessert. It's not very nice, though. I wouldn't recommend trying it.
Just not on.
I wouldn't think there's that many big differences between British and American meal etiquette, apart from the fact you guys, like, say a prayer before you eat. That's the only one I can think of before we do get into the video. You say grace, right? We don't really do that. But we don't do that.
New work computer. But it's also about some
At
of the
least my family
mechanisms that
doesn't.
we use to get it into our mouths. I'm still talking about food. And also some of the customs and politeness norms that comes with the process of eating. And so without further crab rangoon, here are 5 ways that British
Crab
and American
rangoon.
eating etiquette is very, very different.
Okay. Ooh.
Whether you call it
That's all right.
cutlery, like we do in Britain, or silverware or flatware, or in this case plasticware,
Plastic.
because, you know, we are rationing, we can all agree that without them, meal times would be very, very messy, especially in America where they put sauce on everything. But the real question is, how do we hold them? And this was part of my existential
Fork in the left hand, knife in the right hand. Easy.
crisis after I moved to the United States, because I grew up learning the European style, or as it might be known here, the continental style. And when I say that, I'm referring to what is the official utensil etiquette, right? As opposed to the official American etiquette. And I'm going to show you, I think anyway, some of the differences. I personally don't have either etiquette completely down because, in my wife's words, I still eat like a toddler. But it mostly comes down to how we hold the fork. In Britain, you hold it kind of like that, I think. So
Yeah.
you've got it, the end of it's touching your palm, and then you sort of grasp it with your thumb and your pointy finger, and it's there for pointing downward, right? And you stick it into the potatoes or the strawberries or the spotted dick. And notice it's in my left hand. That's going to be important in a moment. And in the other hand, you have your knife, right? Usually like this, with the pointy finger right there, and it's touching your palm again. So consistent on both hands, right? It's almost an extension of you. You're almost Wolverine, but from the United
Become one with the knife and fork. Is he going to say you guys hold the fork in the right hand? Surely not.
Kingdom or Europe. And then you do this, right? Usually at a lower level. You wouldn't be able to see it because my arms are off screen now, so I'll put them back there. And then you cut into the potatoes or the strawberries or the creamy spotted dick. It can come with custard. That's normal. And voila, put it in your mouth. There's nothing on this. This isn't that scene in Hook where they eat invisible food. It goes this way round, right, with the tines facing downward toward your tongue. In America, it's quite a bit different, right? So people will hold their fork like this, with the tines facing upward. In other words, to kind of scoop up the food, right? So they'll do that. And actually sometimes, not every time, I mean, I'm sure there are people that circumvent all of the things you hear in this very list, but sometimes Americans won't even use a knife, right? You'll just see them scoop something up, maybe a potato. We won't go through the entire list again. Put it in their mouth. If they want to cut up things in that way, sometimes I'll do it with the fork, right? Don't recommend it with plastic forks. You know, you can get through these pretty quickly if you...
I've done this before as well. When I first became a uni student and I had to start doing my own washing and stuff, 18, 19 years old, sometimes there was no clean knife, so I just use a fork and start chopping it sideways with a fork. So that's not that weird. Using it like a spoon's a bit odd though. Like scooping food. Stab, you point it. That's why it's pointer.
If you do that. But if they do use a knife, they may turn the fork like this into the potato and then cut like that. You've got it there, you turn it back around, it's in your gob, and there you go. Bob's your uncle, you've got potatoes. And You know, that's what a lot of Americans do. My father-in-law, though, did this. He had it like that
Oh,
and
no.
like that. He'd turn it that way,
You're just
that
stabbing
way,
it.
and then like that. It sort of looked, I should tell you that my in-laws were cavemen. But it was through those very cavemen slash dear relatives of my wife that I was first introduced to our next entry.
Saying grace. This
Yes,
is one
saying grace. This one is
I've
quite a
heard
tough
of.
entry in many ways because, in order to talk about it, I do have to somewhat generalize. And also, I don't have much data to back up what I'm about to say. It's more observationally driven, right? So when I lived in England for 27 years of my life, I don't say that with disdain. It was a good time. But in all that time, I don't really remember sitting down to a dinner function of any kind and really sort of saying grace beforehand. In other words, kicking off the meal with a sort of faith.
Yeah, same here. My family is Christian. We're not really religious people, though. But I have some family who are quite religious, go to church every Sunday. Even when I've at their house, they don't say grace before the food. Just not something we do.
Based thanks. Now, part of that, and again, this is where the generalization comes in, so bear with me, but in England, we tend to be less sort of like publicly open or just sort of even privately open, if you can be, among your family members about your religious beliefs. Whereas in the United States, I think people are more sort of proud of that, whatever their religious faith is. And so sometimes in some families, and this again could be regional, so I might well be generalizing, but some families, including the extended relatives that I married into, I didn't marry them, I married into the family. Some families, and I gather maybe quite a lot of families here in the United States, particularly at special events like Thanksgiving or maybe even a homecoming of some kind, will sort of say grace before the meal. And there'll usually be one family member who stands up and says it on behalf of the entire group. And then you say amen and go about your way. For me, it was quite weird at first, I think. Now, I'm very respectful of other people's religious beliefs. I didn't really know what to do except just sort of sit there and then wait for it to be done. And then, because I had half a mind on the turkey. So what are you going to do? And because I'm generalizing here, it's important for me to say that this is my experience. I'd be very interested to hear other people's experiences, other Europeans' experiences of coming here and maybe having to say grace when they're not used to it, or, Americans that don't themselves practice this. I've also heard it can go one step further here where the whole family holds hands. I definitely draw.
I've seen that in TV shows. That's where I've seen grace, like, being said is in TV shows mainly. I've never witnessed it myself.
Draw the line at that, especially
Let
right
me know
now.
in the comments.
The best way that I
you
can
and
put
your
this
family
for
do
British people watching back
partake.
home is, in football when, somebody dies and they have a minute's silence within the stadium, and then when the minute's silence is up, they all erupt in applause and all of that. It's kind of like that, minus the applause. It's just an amen.
Such a
But the
weird
energy
comparison.
after that is great because you all want to tuck into your food. And because the energy's so good, that leads us on to our next entry.
Table chatter.
Oh, I don't mind a bit of chatter and exceptionally weird noises. And at an American dinner table, you're going to get a lot of chatter. Usually, again, this is another generalization, but on the whole, this is my experience. And I'm one of those people who doesn't think that Americans are always loud, as the stereotype dictates. But one exception tends to be in restaurants, right?
I've noticed this actually. So when I've been on holiday or when I spent some time in Asia, there was like a lot of American expats and they're so loud in restaurants. Like, one of my biggest fears is people overhearing my conversations. Not that I'm saying anything weird. I just don't like other people having to hear what I've got to say, like in a private set, not a private setting like a restaurant, but you know what I mean. Americans are extremely loud in restaurants. At home though, me and my family in England when I was growing up, we didn't really eat at the table. We would eat on the sofa, which I guess is kind of a non-British way to do things. But we'd watch TV, but it would always be like a quiz show. So we have famous quiz shows like The Chase or Countdown or something like that. So you would almost be like quizzing against each other whilst eating your food. Quite fun, It's quite a family thing to do. You're eating, you're answering questions, seeing who's the smartest in the family. Good times, good times.
I do hear the volume go up there as compared to Britain, where it feels like we're always battling with this war within ourselves to not air our dirty laundry in public.
Exactly.
I'm not saying we don't talk at dinner tables, don't get me wrong. It feels observationally, once again, and again, there's no data on this. There's not somebody going around measuring the decibels in every restaurant in either country.
There might be.
Especially right now because they're all closed. But that's my general experience of it. Now, I could be getting thrown off course a little bit here because, you know, my wife's family are really loud. Don't tell them I said that, although this is a public video. They know it's true. I've told them before, and that's why we've not spoken in a year. But here in America, you might be in a restaurant, sitting down with just one other person, trying to have a quiet, intimate conversation, and to your right there's this really loud family with a 5-year-old running around with a stupid hat on that he got from the restaurant, right? So they're further enhancing the volume of said family. And then on the other side there's clearly what is a date happening, and the woman is just sitting there quietly looking quite glum, while the man very audibly and haphazardly talks about all of the Fortune 500 companies he's worked for, and she stares into space, presumably thinking of all the ways that she can get out of there. But on the other hand, once you do get used to that sort of raised volume, it does add to the atmosphere, you know. And if you're already in a good mood and you enter somewhere where, you know, thousands, oh, that's a huge restaurant, hundreds maybe, where there's lots of people and they're in a good mood, and it just sort of bounces off the walls, you know. But speaking of restaurants, that brings us on to our next entry. Servers. My heart does go out to all of the servers and anybody else to whom this applies around the world who can't go into work right now. And a huge thank you to delivery servers who are able to keep people fed who might need it. But, you know, back in peacetime when the restaurants were still open, there was quite a marked difference between, you know, British servers and American servers, and the way they sort of conduct themselves at the dinner table while you're eating your dinner. In Britain, they're quite standoffish, and I know that's just a trait of British people in general, I get that, but they don't have the incentive, which we'll talk about in a minute, to constantly be coming back to your table and seeing how you're doing, checking if you need a refill on that water, because you probably won't get one anyway. I'm joking, of course you'll get a free refill on your water, just nothing else. Often, know this, if you want their attention, you're going to have to get their attention yourself, and that includes when it comes time to pay the bill. Whereas in the United States, and each restaurant has its different policy on this, you know, the waiting staff will come to your table every 5 minutes usually just to see how you're doing, and it seemingly doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a seriously one-sided conversation about the Fortune 500 companies you've worked for. They will still come over and go, hey, what's up? How's that tenderloin working out for you? And there are...
I don't know if I'd like that, you know. I don't know if I would like that. I like to just ask if I need something and not be bothered otherwise. You know, where else, when I've been in other countries and you go shopping, if I go in like say if I go into an Adidas shop, I'm always wearing Adidas, and somebody comes up to me and asks me what I'm looking for and do I need help with this, and start almost like trying to show me around the shop, I'm like, just leave me alone. If I need you, I'll get you. You know what I mean? I guess it's just differences though. British people, we are standoffish. We are.
There are a couple of big reasons, I think, that American serving staff do this. Firstly, the company often dictates it. It's seen as a kind of data-driven way of, you know, having good customer service. But having good customer service could well dictate this.
The tip. Every video we watch mentions the tip.
With that, no. Well, he might go back to his milk phase eventually. Yeah.
I was a waiter, by the way, as well, for a short period in England. It's a tough job. I did get tips though in England as well. Not like crazy tips, but I got paid a good wage. Not a good wage, but a decent wage as well.
So the dreaded tip, or at least it was dreaded to me when I first moved to America, actually, when I landed at Philadelphia Airport. This is the first time I remember having to sort of navigate the American tipping system because I bought a drink at a bar at that very airport. And having bought the Jack Daniels, or 6, I'm not a good flyer. I turned to the gentleman next to me and I asked him, how does tipping work? And, you know, he very, very kindly offered, well, whatever the amount is on your receipt, just give them 85% of that. And that's about good. That's standard. That was a lie. And I ended up almost bankrupt. Firstly, in the United States, regardless of the
right?
amount, it's very much expected that you do tip because that's basically how servers make their wage. And the standard amount that you're expected to tip is the complete opposite of 85%. It's 15%, right?
Okay.
But if you thought it was good service, or just to be sort of a good person, really, you can definitely tip more than that. I typically tip. Just try saying that after 6 whiskeys. I did that night. I typically tip, particularly if I'm on a trip, 20%, or I might even round up to 21 if it kind of requires it. Tipping of some kind is expected here. In the UK, if you're thinking of going there, firstly, don't do that right now, but if after all this blows over you are fancying going to the UK, then you're not required to tip at all, right? I mean, people get paid a sort of...
I'd say a lot of our tipping in the UK is, say if I go get my haircut, which I do need a haircut, my haircut is £12, okay? I'm going to give him a £10 note and a £5 note. £15, I'll just say keep the change. That's like our way of tipping. If I go to a bar and it comes to £8.60 for my 2 drinks or whatever, I'll give him £10, keep the change. The only place it differs, I would say, is in a restaurant. Like, you'd let them keep the change but also give a bit more. Probably not 20%, probably more like 10%. Depends how many people you're with, though, doesn't it? How long you've been at the restaurant. If you're in and out, you don't need to give a big tip. If you've been there, you've been eating your food, you've had some drinks, you're still conversating around the table, then you give a bit extra tip.
Sort of living wage, more or less, for being a server in the UK. It's good practice. If you want to do that, you certainly can. 10% is recommended. And, growing up in the UK, I never really did tip all that often, I must say. I think if I were to live there now, I probably would do so a bit more. It's not expected. I mean, servers aren't going to expect you to tip. Although, if they hear your accent and you are American, their ears might prick up a bit thinking, here comes a payday, right? Whereas it's the other way round here. As soon as servers hear a British accent, they must be filled with dread. Or maybe that's not true. Maybe servers hear a British accent and think, he's ripe for manipulation. I've had some bad experiences. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me today. And, it's kind of sad that I couldn't practice a lot of these things for the video, except for the knives and forks, and those were the last plastics I have. As ever, a reminder that you can keep up with me and all my stupid ramblings.
So that was 5 British ways. British and American meal etiquette is very different. Like I said, go and check out Lost in the Pond YouTube channel. Subscribe to him. He's got way more subscribers than me, but he's a really good channel. Should be on more subscribers than he is. Subscribe to my channel if you are enjoying the videos. Comment down below on any other videos you want me to check out. A few of you guys told me to check out more of Lost in the Pond's videos, so here we are. And yeah, I'll see you for the next one. Take it easy. Peace.